The cantina on Xerion Prime buzzed with the usual mixture of alien conversations and synthesized music. Sergeant Marcus "Tank" Rodriguez sat alone at a corner table, nursing his third glass of Rigelian whiskey. The amber liquid burned pleasantly as it went down, a familiar comfort after 6 months of deep space patrol duty. His green beret sat on the table beside his drink, the worn fabric bearing the insignia of Earth's Special Forces. Tank's weathered hands traced the rim of his glass as he watched the diverse crowd of aliens mingling throughout the establishment. Tall, blue-skinned Zentaurians argued loudly near the bar, while insectoid hive minds clicked and chirped at each other in rapid succession. It was supposed to be neutral territory, a place where different species could interact peacefully under the protection of the Galactic Confederation's laws. The door hissed open, and Tank's trained eyes immediately cataloged the newcomer. A Catherian warrior stepped inside, his reptilian features twisted in what Tank recognized as barely contained aggression. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scaled hide gleaming under the cantina's artificial lighting. Military-grade cybernetic implants covered half his face, and a plasma rifle hung from his back despite the cantina's strict no-weapons policy. Tank had encountered Catherians before during his tours in the Outer Rim territories. They were proud, militaristic, and believed themselves to be the galaxy's ultimate warriors. Most importantly, they had a particular hatred for humans ever since Earth had been accepted into the Galactic Confederation, despite being one of the youngest spacefaring civilizations. The Catherians' yellow eyes scanned the room until they locked onto Tank's table. The alien's forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air, and his expression shifted to one of predatory interest. Tank felt the familiar tingle of danger creeping up his spine, the same instinct that had kept him alive through countless missions in hostile territory. "Human," the Catherian's voice carried across the cantina as he approached Tank's table. The word was spoken like a curse, dripping with disdain. "You wear the markings of a warrior." Tank looked up calmly, his dark eyes meeting the alien's gaze without flinching. "Just trying to enjoy a quiet drink, friend." "No trouble here." The Catherian's laugh was a harsh, grating sound that caused several nearby patrons to glance nervously in their direction. "Trouble? You misunderstand, soft skin. I am Warlord Zentar of the Catherian 4th Battle Fleet. I have conquered 17 worlds and personally slain over 3,000 enemies in combat." Tank took another sip of his whiskey, seemingly unimpressed. "Congratulations. That's quite a resume." The casual dismissal clearly infuriated the alien warrior. Zentar's clawed hands clenched into fists, and his cybernetic eye glowed with a menacing red light. "You dare mock me? I have heard of Earth's so-called special forces. Weakling mammals who think their primitive tactics make them formidable." "Look, I'm off duty," Tank said, his voice remaining level despite the growing tension. "Why don't you find someone else to compare war stories with?" Zentar leaned forward, placing his massive clawed hands on the table. The metal groaned under the pressure. "I challenge you to single combat, human. Let us see if your species deserves its place among the stars, or if you are merely another inferior race that should be purged from the galaxy." The cantina had gone completely silent. Every patron was now watching the confrontation with a mixture of fascination and terror. Tank could feel dozens of alien eyes upon him, waiting to see how he would respond to the challenge. Tank slowly finished his drink and set the glass down with deliberate care. When he looked up at Zentar, there was something different in his expression. The casual off-duty soldier was gone, replaced by something much more dangerous. "You really want to do this?" Tank asked quietly. "I will tear you apart with my bare claws," Zentar snarled. "Then I will broadcast your death across the galaxy as proof that humans are nothing but prey animals." Tank stood up, his movements fluid and controlled. At 5'10", he was dwarfed by the massive Cytherian, but he showed no sign of intimidation. He picked up his green beret and placed it carefully on his head, the simple gesture somehow transforming him from a casual drinker into a professional killer. "Outside," Tank said simply. The crowd followed them out into the artificial twilight of Zarian Prime's dome city. The entertainment district's neon lights cast colorful shadows across the assembled aliens as they formed a loose circle around the two combatants. Someone had already begun broadcasting the fight on the local networks, and Tank could see the viewer count climbing rapidly on nearby screens. Zentar removed his plasma rifle and handed it to another Cytherian who had joined the growing crowd. "I will not even need weapons to destroy this pathetic human." Tank rolled his shoulders, loosening up muscles that had been tensed from months of space travel. He had fought Cytherians before, both in formal duels and desperate battlefield encounters. They were strong, fast, and naturally aggressive, but they were also predictable, relying too heavily on their physical advantages and not enough on tactical thinking. "Whenever you're ready, big guy," Tank said, settling into a combat stance that looked deceptively relaxed. Zentar roared and charged, his massive frame moving with surprising speed. His clawed hands swept toward Tank's head in a move designed to decapitate the smaller human in a single blow. Tank ducked under the swipe and stepped to the side, letting Zentar's momentum carry him past. As the Cytherian stumbled, Tank drove his elbow into the alien's kidney area with surgical precision. The blow would have dropped most humans, but Zentar merely grunted and spun around with a backhand that Tank barely avoided. The fight quickly became a deadly dance. Zentar's attacks were powerful and relentless, but Tank's superior training and experience allowed him to stay one step ahead. He used the Cytherian's size against him, staying close where the larger alien's reach advantage was minimized. Tank landed precise strikes on nerve clusters and pressure points, targeting areas where even Cytherian physiology was vulnerable. Each hit was calculated and purposeful, designed to wear down his opponent's strength and mobility. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the human not only held his own against the feared Cytherian warrior, but actually began to gain the upper hand. Zentar's movements became increasingly sluggish as Tank's systematic assault took its toll. "Impossible," Zentar gasped, green blood trickling from his mouth, where Tank had landed a particularly effective uppercut. "You are just a human." Tank's expression remained cold and professional. "I'm not just a human. I'm a Green Beret. We're trained to be better than anyone else at killing people. And that includes oversized lizards with anger management issues." Zentar roared in fury and launched himself at Tank in a desperate final attack. Tank sidestepped smoothly and grabbed the Cytherian's arm, using the alien's own momentum to send him crashing into the ground. Before Zentar could recover, Tank was on him, applying a chokehold that cut off blood flow to the brain. "Yield," Tank commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed in life-or-death situations. But Zentar's pride wouldn't allow surrender. Instead, he reached for a concealed plasma knife, intending to stab Tank in the back. The human's training kicked in automatically. His hands moved before conscious thought could intervene, executing a technique that twisted Zentar's neck with a sharp crack. The Cytherian's body went limp instantly. Tank stood up slowly, breathing hard but uninjured. The crowd stared at him in shocked silence. A human had just killed one of the galaxy's most feared warriors in single combat, making it look almost effortless. "Anyone else want to test Earth's military training?" Tank asked the assembled aliens. No one answered. Several Cytherians in the crowd were speaking rapidly into communication devices, their expressions grim. Tank could see the hatred and fury in their reptilian features as they looked at him. Tank retrieved his beret, which had fallen during the fight, and walked back toward the cantina. He had a feeling his quiet evening was about to become much more complicated. What he didn't know was that Warlord Zentar had been the youngest son of the Catherian Supreme Commander, and that the alien military machine was already mobilizing for war. Within hours, every major news network in the galaxy was broadcasting footage of the fight. The image of a single human soldier defeating a Catherian warlord spread across thousands of worlds, sparking debates about human capabilities and the balance of power within the Galactic Confederation. Tank ordered another whiskey and tried to ignore the stares from the other patrons. He had followed protocol by accepting the formal challenge, and killing Zentar had been self-defense. But he knew that technicalities wouldn't matter to a species that valued honor above all else, and had just watched one of their champions die at human hands. His communication device chirped with an incoming message from Earth Command. As he read the urgent recall orders, Tank realized that his actions had set something much larger in motion. The Catherian Empire was mobilizing its war fleets, and Earth's diplomatic channels were buzzing with threats and ultimatums. Tank finished his drink and headed for the spaceport. One way or another, the galaxy was about to learn exactly what humans were capable of when pushed too far. The green beret on his head wasn't just a symbol of elite training. It was a promise that Earth would never back down from a fight, regardless of the odds. As he boarded his transport ship, Tank could see Catherian vessels gathering in orbit around Xerion Prime. Their hulking dreadnoughts bristled with weapons, and their fighter squadrons performed threatening maneuvers just outside the planet's defensive perimeter. The war that was coming would determine whether humanity deserved its place among the stars or if they would be wiped out by a superior military force. Tank had inadvertently become the spark that would ignite the largest conflict the galaxy had seen in centuries. But as he settled into his seat for the journey back to Earth, Tank felt no regret for his actions. Zentar had chosen his own fate the moment he decided that humans were easy prey. Now the entire galaxy would learn the same lesson that Tank had just delivered. Underestimating humanity was a fatal mistake. The transport ship engaged its hyperdrive, carrying Tank toward Earth and the massive military mobilization that awaited him. Behind them, the Catherian war fleet prepared to follow, bringing death and destruction to the birth world of the species that had dared to humiliate their greatest warriors. The galaxy watched and waited to see who would emerge victorious from the coming storm. Few gave humanity much chance against the Catherian military machine. But then again, few had expected a single human soldier to kill warlord Zentar in single combat either. The age of human military dominance was about to begin, and it would be written in the blood of their enemies across the stars. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the massive holographic display in Earth's Strategic Command Center, watching as red dots representing Catherian fleet movements converged on human space. The three-dimensional tactical map showed the enemy's overwhelming numerical advantage with stark clarity, over 1,500 warships against humanity's modest force of 230 vessels. "Ma'am, we're receiving continuous transmissions from the Catherian Supreme Commander," reported Lieutenant Hayes, his voice tight with tension. "He's demanding that we surrender Sergeant Rodriguez for execution, along with formal acknowledgement of human inferiority to Catherian military doctrine." Admiral Chen's jaw tightened as she studied the tactical data. At 62, she had spent her entire career preparing for this moment, the day when humanity would face extinction at the hands of a superior alien force. The irony wasn't lost on her that it had been triggered by a bar fight on a backwater trading station. "What's the status of our defensive preparations?" she asked her staff. General Morrison, Earth's top military strategist, stepped forward with a tablet full of deployment orders. "All fleet elements are moving to predetermined positions. Luna Base is fully operational, and our orbital defense platforms are charging their main batteries. We've also activated the Prometheus protocol." The mention of Prometheus caused several officers to exchange worried glances. It was humanity's most classified military project, so secret that even most of the Admiralty didn't know its full scope. Chen had hoped they would never need to use it. "Time to enemy contact?" Chen asked. 72 hours, ma'am. They're moving their entire battle fleet toward Earth, leaving minimal forces to guard their home systems. Intelligence suggests they view this as a simple punitive expedition rather than a full-scale war. Chen nodded grimly. The Catherians' arrogance would be their downfall, though they didn't know it yet. While the galaxy saw humanity as a young, inexperienced race barely worthy of Confederation membership, Earth's military leaders had been preparing for this scenario since first contact with hostile alien civilizations. "Open a channel to all fleet commanders," Chen ordered. "It's time they understood what they're truly facing." Across the solar system, human warships received the encrypted transmission that would change the course of galactic history. Captain Elena Vasquez of the destroyer USS Tennyson read the orders twice before believing them. After confirming authentication codes, she turned to her tactical officer with a predatory smile. "Well, Commander Park, it looks like we're finally going to field test some of our classified systems," she said, watching her crew's reactions carefully. The Tennyson was one of 12 ships secretly equipped with experimental weapons technology, reverse-engineered from alien artifacts recovered during humanity's expansion into space. While the Galactic Confederation believed humans possessed only basic energy weapons and conventional missiles, Earth's engineers had been quietly developing surprises that would shock even their allies. Meanwhile, on the planet Kithros Prime, Supreme Commander Vaktar addressed his assembled war council. The massive reptilian leader's scarred hide bore the marks of countless battles, and his cybernetic implants glowed with barely contained rage. The death of his youngest son had ignited a fury that could only be quenched with the complete destruction of the human homeworld. "The humans think their pathetic fleet can stand against the might of the Catherian Empire?" Vaktar growled, his voice resonating through the war room's polished metal walls. "We will teach them the price of humiliating our warriors. Every human world will burn, and their species will serve as slaves to demonstrate what happens to those who defy us." Fleet Admiral Zexkar, Vaktar's most trusted general, studied the tactical projections with professional interest. "Supreme Commander, our intelligence indicates that human military technology is approximately 50 years behind our own. Their largest vessels are roughly equivalent to our light cruisers, and they possess no weapons capable of penetrating our dreadnought armor." "Excellent," Vaktar replied, his reptilian features twisting into what might have been a smile. "Deploy the 1st, 3rd, and 7th battle fleets. I want overwhelming force brought to bear. The humans must understand that resistance is futile before they are allowed to surrender." What neither Vaktar nor his generals knew was that human intelligence networks had been monitoring Catherian military communications for months. Every ship movement, every strategic discussion, and every tactical plan was being intercepted and analyzed by Earth's cryptographers. The Catherians' confidence in their own security protocols was about to prove catastrophically misplaced. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, Earth's leading xenoarchaeologist, worked frantically in her underground laboratory beneath the Sahara Desert. The artifacts she studied, remnants of an ancient civilization that had once ruled the galaxy, held secrets that could tip the balance of the coming war. Her team had made breakthrough discoveries in the past year, unlocking technologies that the current galactic powers couldn't even imagine. "Dr. Reeves, we're getting requests from Command for status updates on Project Lazarus," her assistant called from across the lab. Reeves looked up from the crystalline device she was examining, her eyes bright with excitement and exhaustion. "Tell them we're ready. The field generators are operational, and we've successfully tested the temporal displacement matrix on smaller targets." Project Lazarus represented humanity's ultimate trump card, technology that could manipulate space-time itself, creating tactical advantages that conventional military thinking couldn't counter. The ancient civilization that had created these devices had apparently used them to defend against some cosmic threat, leaving behind only ruins and scattered artifacts as evidence of their existence. Back on Zerion Prime, Tank Rodriguez found himself at the center of a diplomatic storm. Galactic Confederation officials had placed him under protective custody, while they debated whether to hand him over to the Catherians or risk a war that could destabilize the entire galaxy. Ambassador Talak, a tall ethereal being from the Etherian Collective, visited Tank in his secure quarters. The ambassador's crystalline features showed obvious distress as he explained the political situation. "Sergeant Rodriguez, you must understand the gravity of what has occurred," Talak said, his melodic voice carrying undertones of worry. "The Catherian Empire has never been defeated in open warfare. Their military machine has conquered dozens of species over the past millennium. If they choose to make an example of humanity, the Confederation may not be able to intervene." Tank looked up from the tactical manual he had been reading, his expression calm despite the circumstances. "With respect, Ambassador, the Catherians made their choice when Zentar decided to pick a fight with someone who could actually fight back. I was defending myself against an armed attacker who was trying to kill me. The political ramifications extend far beyond self-defense," Talak replied. "The Catherians view this as a fundamental challenge to their position as the galaxy's premier military force. They cannot allow the insult to stand without losing face throughout their empire." Tank set down his manual and fixed the ambassador with a steady gaze. "Then maybe it's time someone taught them that they're not as tough as they think they are." What neither Tank nor the ambassador realized was that Earth's intelligence services were already implementing contingency plans that had been decades in the making. Hidden bases throughout human space were activating dormant systems, and sleeper agents embedded within alien governments were beginning to execute their primary objectives. On Luna Base, General Patricia Webb reviewed the final preparations for humanity's defense. The moon's massive railgun installations were targeting solutions for the incoming Catherian fleet, while automated defense drones prepared to launch from concealed silos across the lunar surface. "General, we're receiving confirmation that all Phoenix Squadron vessels have reached their positions," reported Colonel Martinez, Webb's chief of staff. Phoenix Squadron represented Earth's most elite pilots, flying humanity's most advanced fighters. Each pilot had been selected from thousands of candidates and trained using alien simulation technology acquired through covert operations. Their ships incorporated stealth systems and weapons that officially didn't exist in Earth's inventory. "Excellent," Webb replied. "What about our special packages?" "All 12 devices are in position and ready for deployment. The Catherians won't know what hit them." The special packages were humanity's most closely guarded secret, weapons based on ancient alien technology that could disrupt the fundamental forces holding matter together. Each device was powerful enough to completely destroy a capital ship, and their existence was known to fewer than a dozen people in the entire human government. As the Catherian fleet approached Earth's outer system, their commanders remained confident in their overwhelming superiority. Long-range sensors detected the human defensive formations exactly where tactical doctrine predicted they would be. The aliens' battleships charged their primary weapons while their fighter squadrons prepared for launch. "Human vessels are maintaining standard defensive positions," reported Fleet Admiral Zexkar from his flagship's bridge. "No indication of advanced tactical systems or unexpected capabilities." What the Catherian sensors couldn't detect were the cloaked human ships positioned throughout the system, or the massive weapon installations hidden within asteroids and space debris. Earth's military had spent decades preparing for this moment, and they had no intention of fighting a conventional battle against superior numbers. Admiral Chen watched the enemy approach from her command center, feeling the weight of human survival on her shoulders. Every decision she made in the next few hours would determine whether her species continued to exist or joined the countless races that the Catherians had conquered and enslaved. "Ma'am, all units are reporting ready status," Lieutenant Hayes announced. "Operation Thunder God is cleared for execution on your command." Chen took a deep breath and activated her command console. The next phase of the battle would reveal whether humanity's hidden preparations had been sufficient to overcome the Catherian military machine. She thought of Sergeant Rodriguez, whose split-second decision in a dingy cantina had set these events in motion. "All units, this is Admiral Chen," she broadcast to every human vessel in the system. "Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the right of all free peoples to exist without fear of tyranny. Show them what happens when you threaten humanity." Her finger hovered over the activation key that would unleash weapons the galaxy had never seen before. In just a few hours, the Catherian Empire would learn that underestimating human ingenuity and determination was a fatal mistake that would cost them everything they had built over centuries of conquest. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The first Catherian ships entered Earth's outer system like harbingers of destruction, their massive hulls bristling with enough firepower to crack continents. Supreme Commander Vaktar stood on his flagship's bridge, watching the tactical display with satisfaction as his overwhelming fleet closed in on the human homeworld. "Begin the assault," Vaktar commanded, his reptilian voice echoing through the command center. "Target their orbital installations first, then move to planetary bombardment positions." The Catherian dreadnoughts opened fire with synchronized precision, sending streams of plasma bolts toward Earth's defensive platforms. But instead of the easy destruction they expected, something impossible happened. The human installations simply vanished. "What is this?" Vaktar roared as his weapons officer frantically recalibrated the targeting systems. "Sir, the platforms appear to be phasing in and out of normal space-time," the officer reported, his voice trembling with confusion. "Our targeting computers cannot lock onto them." Admiral Chen smiled grimly as she watched the Catherian confusion from her command center. Project Lazarus was performing exactly as designed, using ancient alien technology to make Earth's defenses untouchable by conventional weapons. "Phase 2, she ordered calmly. Across the system, cloaked human vessels decloaked simultaneously, appearing inside the Catherian formation like ghosts, materializing from nothing. The alien commanders had barely begun to react when humanity's secret weapons opened fire. The USS Tennyson unleashed its first quantum torpedo, a weapon that existed only in theoretical physics textbooks until human scientists had reverse-engineered it from ancient artifacts. The projectile didn't simply explode. It unraveled the molecular bonds holding the target together at the quantum level. A Catherian heavy cruiser simply ceased to exist, leaving behind only empty space where 2,000 tons of armored death had been moments before. Captain Vasquez watched in satisfaction as her crew stared at their instruments in disbelief. "Target the next vessel, Commander Park. Let's show them what human innovation looks like." Throughout the Catherian fleet, similar scenes played out as humanity's hidden weapons tore through ships that had been considered invincible. Temporal disruption fields caused enemy vessels to age centuries in seconds, reducing them to rust and debris. Gravity manipulation devices created micro-black holes that consumed entire squadrons. Fleet Admiral Zexkar frantically tried to coordinate a response from his command ship, but the human attack was unlike anything in Catherian military doctrine. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Our intelligence indicated primitive weapon systems." Supreme Commander Vaktar's cybernetic implants glowed with fury as he watched his invincible fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy he had dismissed as inferior. "All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace. We retreat immediately." But even escape was denied to them. Human ships equipped with hyperspace interdiction fields had surrounded the entire system, creating a cage of twisted space-time that prevented faster-than-light travel. The Catherians found themselves trapped in a kill zone of their own making. Dr. Reeves monitored the battle from her underground laboratory, watching as her theoretical work became devastating reality. The ancient technology humanity had discovered wasn't just advanced, it was revolutionary, representing scientific principles that current galactic civilization couldn't comprehend. Dr. Reeves, we're receiving reports that the Catherians are attempting to broadcast surrender terms, her assistant reported excitedly. Too late for that, Reeves replied coldly, thinking of all the species the Catherians had conquered and enslaved over the centuries. Admiral Chen has her orders. On Kithros Prime, the Catherian High Council watched in horror as reports flooded in from their doomed fleet. Ships that had conquered entire star systems were being destroyed with casual ease by weapons that shouldn't exist. "How is this possible?" demanded Counselor Thyrak, her scaled features pale with shock. "The humans are barely out of their gravity well. They should not possess such technology." High Archon Veltar, the oldest member of the Council, studied the tactical feeds with growing dread. "We have made a grave error in judgment. These humans are not the primitives we believed them to be." What the Catherian leadership didn't know was that human infiltration teams had been monitoring their homeworld for years, preparing for exactly this scenario. As the news of the fleet's destruction spread across Kithros Prime, dormant systems hidden throughout the planet began activating. Tank Rodriguez watched the battle unfold from Zerion Prime, where Ambassador Talak had arranged for him to observe the proceedings. The diplomatic quarters had been converted into an impromptu command center as Galactic Confederation officials tried to understand what they were witnessing. "This is impossible," Talak whispered, his crystalline features reflecting the shock felt throughout the galaxy. "The tactical projection showed certain Catherian victory. How are the humans achieving this?" Tank allowed himself a small smile as he watched another Catherian dreadnought disappear from the tactical display. "You made the same mistake they did, Ambassador. You assumed we were exactly what we appeared to be." The truth was that humanity had been preparing for galactic war since their first contact with alien civilizations. While publicly pursuing peaceful integration into the Confederation, Earth's best scientists had been secretly reverse-engineering alien technology and developing weapons that even the galaxy's oldest races couldn't match. General Morrison coordinated the final phase of the operation from Earth's Strategic Command. "All Phoenix Squadron units, you are cleared for Ragnarok Protocol. Show them what happens when you threaten Earth." Phoenix Squadron's elite fighters engaged their most classified systems and simply vanished from normal space-time. When they reappeared moments later, they were inside the Catherian command ship's bridge, having bypassed every defense and shield through dimensional manipulation technology. Supreme Commander Vaktar barely had time to register the impossible sight of human fighters materializing inside his flagship before the quantum charges detonated. The massive dreadnought's hull cracked like an eggshell as fundamental forces were unleashed inside its armored corridors. Within 6 hours, the entire Catherian invasion fleet had been annihilated. Not a single human vessel had been lost, and most hadn't even taken damage. The galaxy's most feared military force had been destroyed so completely that future historians would debate whether the battle had actually occurred. But Admiral Chen wasn't finished. Phase 3 of Operation Thunder. God was about to demonstrate that humanity didn't just defend, they retaliated with interest. Hidden bases throughout human space launched previously undetectable vessels equipped with the same ancient technology that had devastated the Catherian fleet. These ships engaged faster-than-light drives that operated on principles unknown to current galactic science, allowing them to bypass every defense and detection system in the known galaxy. On Kithros Prime, the first sign of humanity's response was when the planet's orbital defense platforms simply stopped existing. One moment they were there, the next they were quantum particles dispersing into space. "Emergency protocols!" screamed High Archon Veltar as alarms wailed throughout the Catherian capital. "Activate all planetary shields!" But human ships were already in the atmosphere, having traveled through folded space to appear directly above major population centers. The weapons they deployed weren't designed to kill. They were designed to demonstrate the absolute futility of continued resistance. Massive holographic displays materialized over every Catherian city, showing the complete destruction of their vaunted fleet in humiliating detail. The images were broadcast on every frequency and communication channel, ensuring that every citizen witnessed their military's utter defeat. Then came the voice of Admiral Chen, speaking in perfect Catherian as her image appeared throughout their empire. "People of Kithros Prime, your leaders chose war with humanity because they believed we were weak. As you can see, they were mistaken. Your entire invasion fleet has been destroyed, and your homeworld is now defenseless against our retaliation." The holographic displays shifted to show tactical projections of what humanity could do to Kithros Prime if they chose. City-sized weapons could appear anywhere on the planet's surface within minutes. The atmospheric processors could be reversed to make the world uninhabitable. Even the planet's rotation could be altered, creating global catastrophes that would end Catherian civilization. However, Chen continued, humanity does not make war on civilians. We offer you one opportunity to surrender unconditionally and accept permanent oversight of your military forces. You have 1 hour to decide. Throughout the Catherian Empire, similar ultimatums were being delivered to every world and military installation. Human ships appeared wherever they wished, demonstrating capabilities that made resistance pointless. The species that had conquered dozens of races found themselves helpless before technology they couldn't understand or counter. High Archon Veltar stared at the tactical displays showing human vessels positioned throughout their star system. Every Catherian military installation was targeted by weapons that could erase them from existence without warning. "What are your orders, High Archon?" asked General Kexvan, the highest-ranking military officer still alive after the fleet's destruction. Veltar's ancient features showed the weight of centuries as she contemplated the end of Catherian dominance. "Signal unconditional surrender to the human forces. Order all our military units to stand down and await further instructions." The message was transmitted across all Catherian frequencies, officially ending the shortest and most one-sided war in galactic history. An empire that had existed for over a millennium had been brought to its knees in less than 12 hours by a species they had considered primitive. Back on Earth, Admiral Chen received the surrender notification with mixed emotions. Humanity had proven its strength beyond any doubt, but the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. The careful diplomatic relationships built over decades had been replaced by fear and suspicion overnight. "Ma'am, we're receiving communications from every major government in the galaxy," reported Lieutenant Hayes. "They're all requesting immediate diplomatic meetings." Chen nodded grimly. "I imagine they are. Schedule sessions with everyone, but make it clear that these meetings will be conducted on Earth's terms. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity is no longer asking for permission to exist." Dr. Reeves emerged from her laboratory to find a world transformed. The ancient alien technology she had unlocked had elevated humanity from a minor spacefaring race to the galaxy's dominant military power in a single day. The responsibility was overwhelming. Tank Rodriguez finally returned to Earth a week later, landing at Andrews Space Force Base to find himself treated as a conquering hero. The simple bar fight that had started everything had become the stuff of legend, with military historians already analyzing how one soldier's actions had triggered the greatest shift in galactic power dynamics in recorded history. "Sergeant," Admiral Chen greeted him personally as he disembarked from his transport. "I hope you're prepared for the consequences of your actions on Zerion Prime." Tank looked around at the assembled media and officials, then back at the Admiral with his characteristic directness. "Ma'am, with respect, I was just defending myself against someone who was trying to kill me. If the galaxy has a problem with humans refusing to be victims, that's their issue to deal with." Chen smiled at the response. "Indeed it is, Sergeant. Welcome home." As humanity settled into its new role as the galaxy's undisputed military superpower, the Catherian Empire began the humiliating process of dismantling the war machine that had terrorized dozens of species. Their former subjects watched in amazement as their oppressors were forced to release enslaved populations and abandon conquered territories. The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth that day. Never underestimate a species just because they appear weak or primitive. Humanity had hidden their true capabilities until the moment they needed them, and that moment had changed everything. In cantinas across 1,000 worlds, the story of Sergeant Rodriguez and the destruction of the Catherian fleet became legend. Aliens who had once looked down on humans as upstart newcomers now spoke in hushed tones about Earth's secret weapons and hidden strength. The age of human dominance had begun not with grand declarations or diplomatic maneuvering, but with a simple soldier refusing to back down from a bully. Sometimes, that was all it took to change the course of galactic history forever.